Before we start, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It happened on a Saturday night, in the heart of Atlanta, inside the warm, buzzed chaos of a house party hosted by our neighbors. The lights were low, music thumping, laughter bouncing off the walls, and then Sarah, my wife, decided to climb on a coffee table with a wine glass in one hand and a crooked grin on her face. Okay, listen up, she shouted, waving for silence like she was the main act in some offbeat comedy show. I have some important new house rules for my dear, sweet husband, Matt. The room turned toward her, a mix of laughter and curiosity in the air. I was mid-conversation, red plastic cup in hand, when I froze. Rule 1, she slurred, grinning as she wobbled a bit in her heels. No touching me without explicit consent. Giggles erupted. Rule 2, don't even ask after 6 p.m., it's emotional labor. I'm off the clock. A couple of guys near the kitchen chuckled. Sarah raised her glass dramatically. And Rule 3, she pointed straight at me, does all the housework now. Every single chore. Because guess what? I'm emotionally exhausted, and he only has a full-time job. No big deal, right? Laughter exploded. But not for me. I stood there, blinking, a forced smile stretching across my face like dried paint. My heart was pounding, but I stayed still, watched her hop down, pleased with herself like she'd just given the performance of her life. As she approached me, I met her eyes. You think that was funny? I asked quietly. Oh, come on, she scoffed, brushing a hand through her curls. It was a joke. Lighten up. You said it like you meant it. In front of everyone. She rolled her eyes. Well, maybe I do mean it. What's wrong? Can't take a little honesty. You humiliated me, Sarah, I said, stepping closer so only she could hear. In front of our friends. You stood on a table to turn our marriage into a skit. She smirked, stepping back like I'd said something ridiculous. Please. You take everything too seriously. If anyone was humiliated, that's on you. I want to know what's really going on with you. You want answers? She said, her voice rising again. Here's your answer, Matt. I'm tired of being touched like I owe you something. I'm tired of pretending our little suburban routine is enough. And if that bruises your ego, then maybe you needed it. Her voice sliced through the music like a knife. People nearby pretended not to listen, but I saw the stolen glances. So all this is some public protest against being married to me? You're not listening, she snapped. That's the problem. You want some picture-perfect wife who smiles and serves and never says a word about her own needs. My jaw clenched. And you want a stage? Well, congratulations, Sarah. You've got one. We stood like that, locked in a moment that didn't belong to the party anymore, just to us. And then she turned away with a scoff, walking toward the kitchen like she'd won something. I left without saying goodbye. Back home, I sat in the driveway for 10 minutes, just breathing. I was 36, a project manager for a mid-sized construction firm, built my whole life around steadiness. Work, mortgage, love, loyalty. I made the coffee every morning. Took the trash out before the truck came. Sarah used to call me Mr. Reliable, like it was a compliment. But tonight, she didn't want reliability. She wanted an audience. And I wasn't sure who that performance had been for. Her friends? Her ego? Or something darker she didn't want to admit. What I did know, that something had shifted between us. And this was just the beginning. It was past midnight by the time Sarah walked through the front door, heels clicking on the hardwood like nothing was wrong. She didn't look at me as she tossed her bag on the counter and grabbed a glass of water. I was already on the couch, sitting in the dark, the only light coming from the street lamp outside our window. I figured you wouldn't come home at all, I said, keeping my voice steady. She glanced over her shoulder with a lazy smile. Thought about it, she said, taking a long sip. But I didn't feel like dragging this outfit through some stranger's place. I stood up slowly, not because I was angry, but because I needed her to see that I wasn't going to be ignored. I want to know what that was tonight, I said, standing on that table, announcing whatever those rules were supposed to be. Her glass clinked against the counter. What do you mean, what that was? I said what I meant. You just didn't like hearing it. In front of everyone, she turned fully to face me now, arms crossed, posture sharp. Would it have been better if I wrote you a letter? Maybe held a staff meeting over breakfast? Sarah, I said, my voice dipping, we're not children. If you've got something to say about our marriage, say it to me. Not to a room full of half-drunk friends like I'm some kind of running joke. She scoffed. Oh, please. You act like I ruined your presidential campaign. It was a party, Matt. People laughed. Get over it. I took a step closer. Is that what you want this to be now? A performance? Because if that's how you see me, if that's what I am to you, just say it. Her smile vanished, replaced by something colder, flatter. This is your new reality, she said quietly. You don't get to touch me like I'm property. You don't get to ask questions when I need space. And yes, you will start carrying your weight at home. No more hiding behind your main job. I blinked. Excuse me. You heard me, she said. The whole I worked all day, so I'm tired excuse? Doesn't fly anymore. I'm tired too, Matt. Mentally, emotionally, and I'm done acting like your personal maid/therapist. I let out a breath, slow and careful. Where is this coming from? She walked past me toward the hallway, but I followed her. No, Sarah, don't just drop this and walk away. Tell me what's changed. Tell me what I did. She paused at the edge of the living room and turned. Her face was unreadable. What changed? I opened my eyes, she said. I looked around and realized I've been playing the perfect wife to someone who thinks a dishwasher cycle counts as contribution. Someone who thinks intimacy means he's owed something. I'm tired of shrinking myself, Matt, and humiliating me in front of everyone. That's empowerment now? She smirked. If you were that easy to humiliate, maybe that says more about you than me. I shook my head, the hurt sinking deeper than I expected. You used to be kind. I used to be quiet, she said, shrugging. Now I'm just honest. For a long second, neither of us said anything. Then I asked the question I hadn't dared ask all night. Is there someone else? She laughed. Not lighthearted. Not guilty. Just amused. Oh, so now I must be cheating if I want independence, she said. That's cute. I didn't say that. I'm asking. Well, don't, she snapped, voice rising for the first time. Because even if there was, you gave me all the reasons I'd need. That hit like a slap. Not because she confirmed anything, but because deep down, I wasn't sure if she was bluffing anymore. I stood still as she walked into the bedroom and shut the door behind her with a soft click. And there I was, standing alone in the dark. Just me and her new reality. The next morning, I left the house early, before Sarah was even out of bed. The silence between us had calcified overnight. I didn't need more words from her. I needed clarity. Jordan picked a booth in the back of our usual diner off Piedmont Road, the kind of place where the waitresses know your order before you sit down. He was already sipping coffee when I walked in. He looked up, studied my face, and said flatly, "You look like you haven't slept." I slid into the booth. I didn't. He leaned back, shaking his head slowly. Man, I've been turning that party over in my head all night. What she said, that wasn't a joke. No, I said. It wasn't. Matt, he said, lowering his voice. That wasn't a marriage moment. That was a power move. In public. It was, he hesitated. It was humiliation. I stared at the sugar packets and the holder between us. I know. He leaned forward, voice firmer now. So what are you gonna do? You can't just let this slide. You look like a hostage standing there, man. I exhaled slowly, then looked him dead in the eyes. I'm not letting it slide. But I'm not reacting how she wants me to, either. Not yet. Jordan's brow furrowed. What does that mean? It means I'm playing along, for now. Her rules, her stage, her new reality. Fine. I paused. I'll follow every ridiculous demand she makes. He blinked. Wait, are you serious? Dead serious, I said, picking up my coffee. No touching without consent. No asking after 6 p.m. All the housework, even after working all day. I'm going to do it all. Matt, he began, but I cut him off with a calm hand. I need to see who she becomes when she thinks she's won. I need to see what this is really about. Because this isn't about intimacy, or dishes, or schedules. Something else is going on. Jordan studied me, nodding slowly. You think she's hiding something? I know she is, I said. But if I push now, all I'll get is noise. Defensiveness. If I want the truth, I have to outweigh the act. Jordan whistled low. Man, that's the bold strategy. I'm done chasing honesty. She wants distance? She'll get it. She wants me to smile and nod. Fine. But I'm going to be watching everything. Our server arrived with 2 plates of eggs and toast, but neither of us touched them right away. You really think you can hold it together while she plays Queen of Crazy Rules? I smirked. I don't need to hold it together. I just need to make her think I am. Jordan shook his head, chuckling bitterly. This is either going to be genius or blow up in your face. I'm counting on it doing both, I said. But when it does, it won't be me who's unprepared. We sat in silence for a moment, just two men in a booth, the quiet hum of the diner around us. Then Jordan lifted his coffee like a toast. To answers, then, I raised mine. And to patience. The strange thing about giving someone everything they ask for is, eventually, they don't know what to do with it. By Monday morning, I'd printed Sarah's so-called rules and taped them to the fridge like a chore chart. Rule 1. Do not touch without consent. Rule 2. Do not ask after 6 p.m. Rule 3. Husband does all the housework, no exceptions. Fine. I started waking up an hour earlier. Made her coffee, left it steaming on the counter without a word. Drove her to the train station if she asked. Washed every dish, folded every towel. And never, not once, did I try to kiss her goodnight. Not a shoulder brush. Not a glance too long. Consent first, I'd say calmly, if she ever looked surprised. Your rule. The first night, Sarah barely acknowledged the shift. She sat on the couch scrolling her phone while I vacuumed. But by Wednesday, I saw her watching me, quietly, while I ironed her blouse before my own meeting. You're really into this, huh? She said, raising an eyebrow. I smiled, just being supportive. She blinked. That answer wasn't what she expected. When I passed by her with a basket of laundry, she reached a foot out playfully to block my path. Hey, she said with a teasing smirk. Aren't you forgetting something? I glanced down at her foot. Laundry's on a schedule, I said evenly. Can I help you with anything else before 6 p.m.? The smirk dropped. Wow, she said. I didn't know I was living with a robot. I tilted my head. I'm just following the rules, Sarah. You made it clear what the new expectations are. I'm doing my part. She stared at me for a second longer, then stood and walked off, muttering, this isn't how it was supposed to go. By Thursday, the air had changed. She'd started looking over her shoulder when I moved too quietly. I left sticky notes instead of questions. Left your dry cleaning by the door. Dinner reheats well. Trash taken out. Her texts to me got shorter, then more frequent. Are you okay? You've been quiet lately. Why are you acting like this? I replied with simple, friendly answers. No emotion, no drama. And that's when it happened. Friday night, the dam broke. I was finishing up dishes when she slammed her wine glass on the counter behind me. All right, that's enough, she said sharply. I turned, drying my hands with a towel. Something wrong. She folded her arms, glaring. Don't play that game with me, Matt. You're acting like I'm a stranger. You said you needed distance. Structure. Control, I said softly. I gave it to you. No, what you gave me is a performance, she snapped. You smile like a customer service rep. You answer everything like I'm your boss. You barely look at me. I walked toward her slowly. Because when I did, when I used to hold your face in my hands, or ask what was really bothering you, you called it pressure. You called it entitlement. Her eyes flashed. Don't twist this. You're punishing me. I stopped inches from her. No, I said. I'm listening. That silence between us now wasn't peaceful. It was jagged. She laughed bitterly. This is your big plan? Make me feel like I'm talking to a ghost until I beg for normal? I didn't answer. Just held her gaze. Calm. Steady. Say something real, she demanded. If you're so hurt, why don't you just say it? I leaned in slightly. Because you only hear what you've already decided is true. Her breath caught. Then she stormed off, muttering, You're insufferable. I returned to the dishes. The rules stayed on the fridge. By Saturday morning, I couldn't shake the feeling in my gut. It wasn't just the coldness in Sarah's voice lately, or the way she looked at me like I was some puzzle she'd solved too quickly. It was what I didn't see, what she wasn't saying. There were hours missing from her days. Showers taken before dinner, perfume at night, a new password on her phone. I wasn't looking for proof of anything. But I also wasn't going to ignore the smoke and pretend there wasn't a fire. That afternoon, I pulled into Jordan's driveway. His garage door was already open, a football game humming low on the radio, and 2 cold beers sweating on the workbench. You don't call on a Saturday unless it's serious, he said without looking up. I stepped inside, grabbed the beer, and leaned against the wall. It's serious. He wiped his hands on a rag, finally giving me his full attention. All right, hit me. I took a sip before answering. I think Sarah's hiding something. And I don't just mean feelings. Jordan's brow tightened. You think there's someone else? I didn't nod. I didn't have to. He let out a slow whistle. What makes you say that? It's the details. The way she dresses up before going to run errands, the sudden interest in locking her phone, how fast she turns it over when I walk into the room. The way she's been picking fights, only to leave the house right after. Jordan leaned back in his chair. You don't want to jump to conclusions. I'm not, I said. That's why I'm not asking her. Not yet. He gave a half smile. So what do you need from me? I set the beer down, serious now. I need eyes on the house when I'm at work. I leave at 7, back at 6. I just want to know who's coming and going. Jordan rubbed his jaw. You sure you want to know that? I have to know. He stood and walked over to the side of the garage where he kept an old cooler. He opened it, pulled out another cold beer, and handed it to me. I've got a buddy who owes me a favor, he said. We can set up a motion camera facing the driveway. Won't catch anything inside, but if anyone's walking in or out when you're not home, we'll see it. That's good, I said, but I also need you to be around. Just a little. Like, swing by to borrow tools. Walk your dog past the porch. Be seen. Jordan nodded. A neighbor who suddenly has time for small talk. Subtle. I can do that. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of what we were setting in motion sinking in. I hate that it's come to this, I muttered. He glanced at me. So what happens if you find out you're right? I don't want to explode. I don't want to scream. I want clarity. Control. I want to be smart about it. He cracked a smile. Since when did you become the patient type? I gave a tired laugh. Since she turned our marriage into a performance and dared me not to clap. Jordan raised his bottle. All right then. To clarity. I clinked mine against his. To patience, I said again. Outside, the sky had started to dim. The kind of quiet fall evening where leaves rustle just enough to remind you that change is coming. And I could feel it. Something was coming. It was a Thursday evening when my phone buzzed twice. One message, one missed call. From Jordan. I was parked outside a side office, headlights off, watching my breath fog up the inside of the windshield. I'd finished work early but didn't feel like going home yet. Something had been scratching at the back of my mind all day, and the silence in my car felt safer than the silence waiting inside the house. I opened the message first. No words. Just a photo. I stared at the screen for a long moment. It was the front of my house, my driveway, my porch. And a man. Tall. Early 40s, maybe. Wearing a slim-fit jacket and dark jeans. Holding his phone in one hand. Casual, like he'd done this before. Like he belonged. I didn't move. I just kept looking at it. The way someone stares at a fire. Entranced, distant. The second buzz came again. This time I answered. Jordan's voice was quiet. I didn't want to text this part. Talk. I said, not even sure if my voice worked. He's been by 3 times this week. Morning once. 2 afternoons. Always when your car's gone. Never stays longer than 30 minutes. Never uses the front door. I saw him walk around back today. Did she let him in? There was a pause. Yeah, he said. She was waiting. My hand stayed steady on the wheel. I didn't clench. Didn't shout. Didn't even curse. I just nodded slowly, forgetting Jordan couldn't see me. Matt. I'm here. Another silence passed. Look, man, Jordan said, his voice softer now. I didn't want this to be the outcome. I hoped it was just you being paranoid. But this guy, he's comfortable. He's not sneaking. No, I said. Why would he be? There's no reason to hide if she thinks I'm not paying attention. Jordan exhaled. You want me to keep watching? I shook my head once. No need. Now I know what I'm up against. I ended the call. Outside the windshield, the sun was setting behind a row of construction cranes. Everything was gray, dipped in steel blue and gold, the kind of light that made even ordinary streets feel cinematic. But inside my chest, everything had gone perfectly still. There it was. The truth. Quiet, sharp-edged. Sarah had someone else. I didn't need to hear her say it. I didn't need to catch them in the act. The look in her eyes lately, the bite in her voice, the hours she vanished, all of it pointed to this. I didn't feel rage. Not yet. What I felt was colder. Like stepping barefoot onto tile in the middle of winter. Like the way your body goes numb before the pain even registers. I opened the car door, letting the night air slap me across the face. It smelled like rain and asphalt and something else, maybe the last remnants of who I used to be. I stood there for a long while, staring out over the city, one hand still resting on the open door. The photo was still open on my phone. His face wasn't fully visible, just turned slightly away, but it didn't matter. He didn't have to be named to be real. I didn't want revenge. Not yet. But I wanted understanding. And now, I had it. I slipped the phone into my pocket and got back behind the wheel, eyes focused straight ahead as I started the engine. The cold night didn't say a word, but it was listening. It was late. The kind of late where even the fridge had stopped humming, and the whole house felt suspended in breathless quiet. Sarah was in the shower, one of those long, drawn-out ones she always took when she needed time to reset. I sat on the edge of the bed, the glow from her phone lighting my face like a low-burning candle. Her passcode hadn't changed. I didn't scroll through messages. I didn't open photos. I just went to her calendar. Thursday, dentist. Midtown. Friday, groceries. Target. Saturday, a.m. coffee DS. DS. Not a friend I recognized. Not initials from any of her coworkers. And definitely not her sister. I tapped the event. Set for 9:30 a.m. at a coffee shop 20 minutes away. No address listed, just usual spot written under the notes. Like whoever D.S. was didn't need directions. I stared at the screen a moment longer. Then the bathroom door clicked open. She walked out in her robe, toweling her hair, eyebrows lifting slightly when she saw the phone in my hand. Seriously? She said, crossing her arms. You're checking my phone now? I looked up at her slowly, my voice level. DS. She blinked. Just for a second. That was all I needed. Then she scoffed. Oh my God. He's just a friend. I didn't ask, I said, setting the phone on the nightstand. Her voice pitched higher. You were clearly digging, Matt. Do you even hear yourself right now? I stood, walked calmly past her toward the dresser. I didn't touch your messages. I looked at your calendar. Public schedule. That's not the point, she snapped, following me. You're spying now? You're playing the victim and the detective? I turned to face her. I'm just observing. She narrowed her eyes. You're trying to catch me in something that doesn't exist. Then you've got nothing to worry about. Her jaw clenched. God, you're exhausting. I didn't move. Didn't blink. Just watched her. And for the first time, I saw it. Behind all the sarcasm, behind the smirking dismissals and forced laughs. A flicker of guilt. Real guilt. Like her armor was suddenly too heavy to carry. She looked away, grabbing her phone from the nightstand. You can't go digging through my life and pretend like you're the calm one, she muttered. I didn't dig, I said. You left the drawer half open. She didn't answer. She just turned her back to me and walked toward the hallway, pretending to scroll, pretending to be fine. But her shoulders were tighter than usual, and she didn't look back. I sat down again, letting the silence wrap around me. One name, one morning. That's all I needed. The rest would write itself. By Friday night, I had everything I needed. His name was Daniel Sutton. DS. Just as I'd guessed. The man from Jordan's photo. The man Sarah was scheduled to meet for coffee the next morning. And it hadn't taken much to find his personal info. One reverse address search, one LinkedIn profile, and a small trace from an old real estate listing where he and his wife, Camilla, were both listed as owners. Her number was listed under a shared business they ran, a home decor shop in Roswell. All it took was a quiet room, a throwaway voice line, and a voice I hadn't used since college theater. Calm. Authoritative. Gentle urgency. Hello, ma'am. I'm calling from the Atlanta Police Department. Your husband, Daniel Sutton, was involved in a minor vehicle incident. He's okay, but gave this number in case we couldn't reach him directly. A pause. I could hear the worry rise in her throat. Oh my God, what happened? He's fine, ma'am. No injuries. But he left a bag in a residential home while helping someone. He asked us to notify you to retrieve it. The address is, I read her my address slowly. He wanted to avoid you driving to the wrong side of town. Camilla sounded unsure, confused, but grateful. Thank you, she said. I'll head there now. I ended the call. My hands didn't shake. I placed the phone down on the table, walked to the living room, and turned on the porch light. Sarah had already gone to bed. She thought I was asleep on the couch, as usual, and in a way I was. Just not the way she expected. I didn't move for the next 40 minutes. Just sat by the window, lights off, watching the street in the silence of our perfect little neighborhood. At exactly 9:29 a.m. Saturday morning, a silver SUV pulled up. He got out first, Daniel. Hair combed, dark coat buttoned, looking far too casual for someone sneaking toward another man's home. He walked toward the front steps like he'd done this routine before. But then the passenger door opened, and Camilla stepped out. He froze mid-stride. She waved, confused. Daniel. He turned sharply, eyes wide. What are you doing here? She smiled, half laughing. The police called me. Said you left your bag here. What's going on? Why are we at? Her voice trailed off as she looked past him toward the house. Her smile faded. Daniel stepped forward, trying to steer her back to the car. It's a misunderstanding. Come on, let's go. Wait, she said, pulling away slightly. Why are you here? No reason. It's not what you think. Come on. She didn't ask more. She just followed him back to the car, hand in hand, confused, unaware. They drove off. She'd think it was a prank, a strange coincidence. She wouldn't put it together. Not yet. But he would. Daniel would know exactly what happened. 10 seconds after the car turned the corner, I pulled out my phone. No greeting. No signature. Just one line. Next time your wife will know everything. I hit send. Then I put the phone down and walked to the kitchen. Sarah came in a few minutes later, hair tied, keys in hand. Heading out, she said casually. I'll be back in a couple hours. Okay, I said. Drive safe. She blinked at how normal I sounded. Then she left, and I stood alone in the kitchen, pouring coffee, my hands steady, my breath calm. The first domino had fallen. And now, the game had changed. Something shifted after Saturday. I noticed it in the little things first. Sarah's phone, usually glued to her hand, started spending more time face down on the counter. The constant texting, the coy little half smiles while she scrolled, gone. Instead, she lingered in rooms longer, asked if I wanted anything from the store, laughed louder at my jokes like she was trying to remind me we had something to laugh about. On Tuesday night, she leaned against the fridge while I was loading the dishwasher. So, she said lightly, are we still doing the silent monk routine, or am I allowed to kiss my husband again? I didn't look up. I don't remember giving you clearance to stand in the kitchen. This is a Zone C area. Cleaning personnel only. She blinked. Wait, what? I stood, closed the dishwasher, and wiped my hands. You asked for rules. I thought I'd return the favor. I reached over to the fridge and pulled off the sheet I'd taped earlier that day. A printed list. Sarah's household expectations kitchen must be spotless by 7 p.m. Dinner must include 5 components. Appetizer, main, 2 sides, and dessert. No entering the bedroom without formal invitation. All laundry folded, color-coded, and arranged by fabric type. No sarcasm after 8 p.m. Emotional peace hour. Must compliment the husband 3 times daily, no repeats. She stared at the list, eyes narrowing. You're kidding. I smiled, folding the towel slowly. Nope. These are your new boundaries. You're being petty. I shrugged. Call it empowered. She scoffed. I never said you had to. No, I said calmly. You just got up on a table and rewrote the rules of our marriage in front of everyone we know. This is just me catching up. She grabbed the list, crumpled it in one hand, and tossed it onto the counter. You think this makes you clever? I leaned in slightly, voice low. No, Sarah. I think it makes me clear. That night, she cooked dinner. It was burnt chicken with undercooked asparagus and no dessert. She left the kitchen a mess and walked out halfway through folding the laundry. I didn't say anything. I just raised an eyebrow when she passed by me in the hallway and said, 2 compliments still missing. She ignored me. The next morning, she was up early, dressed a little neater, mascara done, toast on the table with real jam. She even offered to iron my shirt. I don't want to fight, she said. I know we've both been tense. I looked at her carefully. This isn't a fight, Sarah. This is just clarity. You wanted structure. So now we both live in the house we built. That night, she made a full dinner. Salmon, rice, green beans, little cups of chocolate mousse she clearly bought from a store and tried to pass off as homemade. The kitchen was cleaner. The compliments came awkwardly. You're good at folding clothes. Nice shirt. You, always smell like cedar. But her smile didn't reach her eyes. She wasn't trying to win anymore. She was trying to undo something. I miss us, she said softly after dinner. I nodded once. I miss a lot of things. Her shoulders dropped a little. You're really not going to let this go? I did let go, I said. That's why I'm still here. Watching. She sat down across from me at the table, quieter now. Do you think we're too far gone? I didn't answer. I just looked at the list still taped to the fridge, creased, worn, but still there. She followed my gaze. And for the first time since that party, I saw a real panic flicker in her eyes. She wasn't just worried anymore. She was afraid I'd already made up my mind. The house had grown quieter over the last few days. Not peaceful quiet, but the kind that stretches too long, like something's about to snap. Sarah was trying. Not out of love. Out of fear. Dinner was on the table by 6:45 sharp. Socks were folded by color. Floors sparkled. She complimented my tie one morning with a tight smile that looked rehearsed. But every movement came with tension, like she was holding her breath and hoping I'd finally call the game off. I didn't. Wednesday night, I came home to the scent of rosemary chicken and some jazz playing on the speakers. She met me at the door in a sweater she used to wear when things were good between us, the kind of thing I once told her made the world feel softer. "Dinner's almost ready," she said, brushing a hand through her hair. "I even made bread from scratch." "That's so," I said, setting my keys down. "Bread's not one of the 5 required components." Her smile faltered. "Can we please not do this tonight? We're just following the structure," I replied, my voice even. "Unless you're tired. I understand. It's a lot." She turned back toward the kitchen, her shoulders tight. "I'm doing my best." "I know," I said, walking to the table. "That's what scares me." We sat in silence through most of dinner. She poked at her food more than she ate. Her hands trembled when she passed the salt. Finally, she slammed her fork down. "Okay, Matt, just say it. Whatever it is you've been holding back, just say it." I set my napkin on the table. "I already did." "You're being cruel," she snapped, eyes shining now. "You think this makes you strong? Punishing me like this?" I stood, walked to the kitchen drawer, and pulled out a simple manila envelope. Laid it carefully between us on the table. She stared at it like it might explode. "What is this?" she whispered. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't blink. "I know everything." She didn't touch it. Her mouth parted slightly, eyes scanning my face like she still had a chance to lie her way out. "Everything?" she repeated. I nodded once. "Daniel. The coffee shop. The calendar entries. The erased texts. The way you stopped flinching when you lied." Silence. Then, her hand darted out and slapped the envelope off the table. "You went through my private stuff?" she shouted. "No," I said. "I gave you space. I waited. You filled in the rest." She pushed back from the table, her chair scraping loud against the floor. "You don't get to do this. Act like you're the victim when you've been playing judge and jury for weeks." I stepped forward, picked up the papers from the floor, and laid them back on the table, this time without a word. Her hands were shaking now. The storm she'd tried to control had finally turned. "I don't want this," she said, voice cracking. "I didn't either," I said softly. "But you stopped choosing me. You just didn't think I'd notice." Tears welled in her eyes, but she turned away, unwilling to let them fall in front of me. "You think this is justice?" she whispered. "No," I replied. "It's closure." I left the envelope on the table and walked out of the room. It was 2 weeks after the papers were finalized when I met Jordan at our usual spot, a rundown picnic table behind the old batting cages off Howell Mill. Same place we used to skip high school classes for cheap burgers and big ideas. Funny how certain places don't age, even when you do. He was already there when I pulled up, sipping coffee from a paper cup, grinning like he'd been waiting years for this conversation. "So," he said as I sat down, "did the curtain finally fall on Act 3? I smirked. "Closed. Signed. Witnessed. Notarized." He let out a low whistle. "And she didn't flip the table? Didn't have the energy?" I said. She tried to cry, but even her tears felt rehearsed by that point. Jordan chuckled, shaking his head. "You pulled off one of the coldest exits I've ever seen. Straight up psychological chess." "It wasn't about revenge," I said quietly. "I just wanted her to see the space she created, the rules she thought would keep me small." He nodded, serious now. "And now," I said, leaning back on the bench. "I sleep like a man who doesn't get accused for breathing too loud." Jordan raised his cup like a toast. "To freedom." I clinked mine against his. "To clarity." For a while, we just sat in silence. The afternoon sun cut through the trees, casting long shadows across the pavement. I could smell cut grass and distant grilled onions from a vendor nearby. "You think she ever figured out it was you?" Jordan asked. I shrugged. "Maybe. Maybe not. Doesn't matter now. She made her choices. I just gave her a mirror." He laughed again, this time deep from the chest. "Man, you always did play the long game." I looked out across the field, watching a kid take slow, awkward swings at the batting cages. His dad stood behind him, correcting his form with quiet patience. I used to think staying meant strength, I said. Now I know it's knowing when to let go that takes the real kind. Jordan nodded slowly. So what's next? I smiled. Nothing planned. And that's the best part. We stayed there until the sun dipped low, 2 friends, 1 war behind us, and a wide open road ahead. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. I was already walking forward. And that was the end of my story. But there's something that still sits with me. Jordan agreed to help me watch my own house, to track who came and went when I wasn't looking. He didn't know me that. He could have stayed out of it, but instead, he stood beside me when things got dark. Did he cross a line for friendship? Or just do what any real friend would? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you want more real stories like this one.